Hey, what's up, guys? Coach Mack, playfastfootball.blogspot.com. What I want to look at today as we head into, we're getting ready to open up spring ball in about 2 weeks. I know a lot of other high school programs have spring ball that they're getting ready to go into, or some type of off-season developmental program that they're getting into, depending on what the rules are for their state or where they play football. Most colleges just finished up their spring game. Others have their spring games this week. So what I want to look at right now is I want to talk a little bit about practices. And we've done, I did in the past, we did a blog on kind of spicing up or changing, practice plans to get a little more excitement, to get out of the lull of the mundane every day. Today what I want to look at is getting specific with your practice plans to get out something that you want to get out of your practice. So, defensively, people talk about takeaways. And if you want to focus on takeaways, then you have to do that in practice. So you have to have some type of takeaway circuit or turnover circuit. You have to allow your players to rip and strip before the whistle blows. You have to allow your players, maybe if the quarterback is not live, you have to allow them to at least rush the passer, to apply pressure, to maybe force interceptions, or to get to the quarterback, to get strips. You have to focus on takeaways if you want to get good at takeaways. If you want to be better at special teams, you'll hear in the offseason a lot of people say, hey, we need to get better at special teams, and I feel like we can win 1 or 2 more games if we were better at special teams. If you want to get better at special teams, then you got to practice special teams more. So you need to put practicing special teams into your practice plan a little bit more. All right, so what we're going to kind of look at today is basically the law of specificity, or the ability to acquire a skill by training that particular skill, or the ability to hone that skill by training that individual skill. If you want, a lot of people tell you if you're a sprinter in track and you want to run faster, then you better work on running and running faster. If you're a golfer and you want to become a better putter, well, you better spend a bunch of time on a putting green. Okay, if you are, if you're training for Olympic lifts as an Olympic lifter, well, you better put a bunch of your time into Olympic lifts and maybe less time on bench press or other exercises that are not part of an Olympic program. So the law of specificity tells us that in order for us to get better at a certain skill, we need to work on that skill. So what I'm going to talk about today is for me, this offseason and this spring, the one non-negotiable for me on offense is going to be the tempo at which we play. I felt like our tempo was not very good last year. I felt like we need to be an up-tempo team in order for us this season to compete with the teams that are on our schedule. And it's going to be the one non-negotiable for me coming up this spring, because as I talk to the other coaches on the staff, the one thing I tell them all the time is you can slow down at any time you want to. As an offensive coordinator or a head coach, you can slow the game down at any time you want to. The one thing that you really can't do, or at least you can't do effectively, is it's very hard to speed up. You might have a 4-minute offense, or you might have a 2-minute offense, and you might get to it at the end of the half and have some success. Usually when that happens, though, you're having success because of the type of defense that the other team is playing. You'll see teams all the time in a 2-minute drill go down the field and kick a field goal, and you'll hear people say, why don't they just play at that pace all the time? Well, if it's in a 2-minute scenario and the defense is playing in a 2-minute scenario, that doesn't necessarily mean that that is going to work every down as in a base situation. So in order to play faster, you have to practice everything that goes into playing faster as a tempo team. You have to practice on getting lined up. You have to practice the communication involved to be up-tempo. You have to practice the signaling involved to be up-tempo. You have to practice changing the tempo. How do you change the snap count? How do you snap the ball on first down? How do you snap the ball on one? How do you freeze or check with me? Okay? If and when you do change the snap count or the tempo, you have to practice that with your kids so that they understand, hold on, we just checked or freezed, center, don't snap the ball. Or maybe we went from a tempo that was snapping it on first down and we killed it or freezed it, and the coach put you in a formation or something that makes you snap the ball on a different snap count. Those things have to be worked over and over again in order to get your kids comfortable, so that when you go out onto the game field on a Friday night and you put the kids in a situation that you haven't really practiced a lot, and the quarterback or the center snaps it with the quarterback looking at the sideline, or the center snaps it before everybody's ready, or there's 3 guys moving and it's a false start, and then you're blaming the kids and going, I can't believe we did this, this, or this. Well, how many times have the kids been in that situation? How many times have you worked on changing that tempo? How many times have you worked on freezing that snap count? How many times have you worked on the communication involved in getting from one personnel group to another or one formation to another, all with hand signals, all in a very short amount of time? Okay, so for us, this spring, for me, I am going to make it non-negotiable that we play as fast as we can possibly play. That is going to be the one thing that I stress. I don't know if we can play fast next year. I don't know what our numbers are. I don't know how many guys might have to play both ways. We might get to a point where sometimes the tempo is not advantageous for us. But I do know this. You cannot turn things up. You cannot go faster when you want to go faster, but you certainly can go slower when you want to go slower. So, playing at a fast pace for us, we are going to put a lot of emphasis on it, and I'm going to make sure as a head coach we put a bunch of emphasis on playing up tempo this spring. So what I've got right here is I've got a generic practice plan, okay? And today, for the purpose of this video, we're going to talk about how do you do things in practice to get out of it what you want. So here's a generic practice plan with no special teams involved. Just to say a generic, very simple offensive practice plan. Flex to Indy, inside run, water break, skeleton or pass pro, screen period, water break, team period. Now, is that everybody's practice? No. Is that the way that you should practice? No. To me, there is no such thing as a template for a practice. To me, your practices ought to be geared towards how you want to operate, how your kids can best operate, how many coaches you have, how many filmers do you have. Not all of us have the same unique set of circumstances around our program. So you really can't lay a template out and sell it for $9.99 and saying, hey, you want to win a state championship, practice like this. We all go to college practices to see how they do things. We all go and listen to people talk about their practice plans. But the one thing you got to understand at your individual school is there is no right or wrong practice. There's nothing to say that you have to do certain things. Okay, I've been at places that are 11 on 11 for 90% of the practice, and they're competing for state championships. Okay, I've been at places that almost never do team. Everything is in some type of compartmentalized group setting, and they very rarely do 11 on 11, and they compete for state championships. I think the great thing about practice plans in the game of football is make them what you want to make them. Okay, practice the way you're comfortable practicing, and even better yet, practice the way that suits your kids. This is now my third different job in my high school career. Originally, I was at one school for 14 years straight. All I knew was that school. All I knew was what worked for us. Now that I've been at some different places, I found out that the practice schedule at one place isn't the greatest for the practice schedule at another place. You might have a school where your kids can sit down and watch film for an hour before ever going on the field and you don't miss a beat. You may go to another program where after 15 minutes of watching film, your kids are already bouncing off the walls and they can't concentrate anymore. So, in high school, I don't think there is, hey, it's done this way, and if you don't like it, your ass gets out of here, you go somewhere else. I don't think that's something you can do in high school. If you're recruiting kids to play at your place and you lay it out for them with a 4-year scholarship that says, hey, understand if you sign here, these are the things that are involved, that's up to that young man to make a decision. In high school, with all the different personalities we get and all the different sets of learning skills that we have, I think we've got to be flexible with what we do, and I think you've got to make it work for your school. So, with that being said, though, there's one thing about a practice plan at any high school, or any junior high school, or any middle school, or any college program. What you do in the practice is what you're going to get out of it on a Friday. So when we talk about the law of specificity, what I'm going to say to you is I'm going to alter my practice schedule this upcoming spring to change it around to make sure that we get enough emphasis on playing at a fast pace. And there is enough emphasis on the communication process of playing up-tempo and the changing of speeds of playing up-tempo. So here's what we're going to do, okay? Nothing revolutionary. I don't think it's going to be the be-all, end-all of practice. I don't think everybody's going to look at this and say, that's what we got to do. This is my own opinion, something that we're going to do for me to get my coaches and players to understand what we're trying to get to, okay? What we're going to do is, after every team period, okay, or every group period, after every period we have, we are going to interject a tempo on-air period after every single period. So 11 offensive players on air with a coach moving and spotting the ball with the offensive coordinator and whoever else is involved in signaling the plays, and any other players that are involved in changing personnel or formations involved getting on and off the field. Okay? So if we went from flex to Indy, after Indy, all right, we're going to go tempo on air. So what we're going to do is we're going to bump all these periods back. So if Indy was 20 minutes, I'm going to bump Indy back to 15 so that we can then go 5 minutes tempo on air. Okay? And if we went to inside run after that, okay, inside run will be bumped to 10 minutes. And as soon as inside run is over, now also if you were doing inside run over here, we might be doing routes on air. Right? So as soon as that period's over, we're going right back to tempo on air. Okay? For 5 minutes. Let's say somewhere in there's going to be a water break, right? Got to put that on a practice plan so everybody sees that you have water breaks. We come out of that water break and we are going to go to 7-on-7 or skeleton with a pass pro segment going on. So our O-line is working pass pro. Maybe we're doing blitz pickups and our quarterback is, we've got our quarterback split up to where one is throwing 7-on-7 and the other one's down there working on blitz protection, hot reads, when it's hot, when it's not. Okay. After that, we're coming right back to tempo on air. All right, so maybe this gets cut down to 10 minutes. Tempo on air goes to 5 minutes. Okay, we come out of that session and we go to a screen period. For argument's sake, okay? Or nowadays, the way things are getting, let's say we don't have a screen period. We work all our RPOs in this next session. So we do all our RPOs in this section here for 10 minutes. Coming right back to tempo on air. All right? So, right back there. Mix in another water break there. All right, come right back to some type of team. 10 minutes, finish the practice, tempo on air. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I am going to, instead of, what we used to do is we used to have one period of tempo on air somewhere in the practice, and we would work on our communication skills, and we would work on signaling, and we would work on personnel changes, and we would concentrate only on those things in that tempo on air period, because you got to remember, anything done on air, you're not physically going to block anybody. All right, so it's hard to see how much success a play would have when you're not blocking anybody, there's no blitzes, there's no stunts. But what you're doing is you're trying to see the communication, and really what you're trying to do is you're trying to ingrain into your coaches and players the pace at which things are going to happen. This is the pace at which the signals are going to happen. This is the pace at which the calls are going to happen. These are the formations or the substitutions that need to go on while we're doing all this. You're trying to get it in their head that this is the pace. This is the tempo at which we play. Now, throughout all these other periods, everything else is probably going to operate the same way. So 7-on-7 will be signaled in, and we're going to go as fast as possible as long as the scout group is set. All right, RPOs and team, those are going to be signaled in. We're not going to huddle all of a sudden during those. We're not going to slow down during those. We're still going to push the pace, and we're going to push the tempo, okay? But what we're going to do is we're going to take a 5-minute reminder after every team period to come back and say tempo on air, to work nothing on or nothing but signals, communication, coordinator getting used to what's going on, changes of personnel if you're going from 10 to 20 to 30, 21, 11. If there's any change in personnel involved, that 5 minutes is all we're working on. And there's going to be a coach out there spotting the ball, moving it 10 to 15 yards, right hash, left hash, middle, right hash, whatever it is. Make the kids go different places on the field. Make them get lined up. Make them look for the signal. You're working on your operating procedure. Now, the other thing that we're going to do in those tempo periods is in each different tempo period, I may want the coach to focus on a specific deal where one of these may be our extreme up-tempo, the fastest we can play in this period right here. Okay? Now, while we're doing that, in the middle of that period, I'm going to expect the coach at some point, once or twice, to freeze, check with me, and see if our kids can freeze, then get a new play, then snap the ball on a snap count. See if all 11 guys on the offense are on the same page with the offensive coordinator. Because if we're going as fast as we can and all of a sudden things change, if we can't adapt to that change and slow down or check with me, if all 11 players can't do that, then you're wasting your time. So during these tempo periods or these on-air periods, that's when we are going to reinforce the operating procedure of the tempo. And there's going to be certain periods, all right, where we change. There might be one 5-minute period where we work in what we call speedball, and that's where we've got one play called, all right, and we're going to stay in that formation and run that play over and over again until the coach kills it. So I may want 5 minutes of nothing but speedball, and I may want the coach to go 3 speedball plays, kill it, call another play, bring him back to the sideline, different speedball play, 4 times, kill it, because now what I'm working on is, do we understand what speedball means? How quickly can we get lined up in the next formation to run the play again? I might be standing behind the quarterback and going, hey, box is good, stick with the run, see what he does. Next play we come up, same plays call, and I say, hey, loaded box, blitz load, see what he does. Next play he comes up and I say, hey, got leverage out to the bubble screen side, see what he does. Because we're on air, he can't see where to go with the ball. He can't look and go, okay, box is good, numbers are good, I'm sticking with this run play. Okay, box is bad, I got man-to-man out here, I'm going to throw this fade ball. Hey, box is good, but they're real tight, this bubble screen. If we get one block out there and I complete this bubble screen, we're in good shape. He can't see that with no defense. So maybe I'll stand behind him, and as we're going through that play, I'll stand behind him and say, hey, throw the access, stick with the run, throw the bubble, whatever it may be, depending on the type of play we have called. And then I may say, hey, coach, 3 plays, kill it, and then change it and see if all 11 players understand. Go back to the sideline, guys. Get another speedball play. Come back out and run 4 plays. Kill it. See how they respond. Go back to the sideline. Get another speedball play. Come out and run it once or twice. Kill it. Now what we're working on is the tempo of the speedball, and then we're working on killing that tempo and getting into the next set or whatever the coach does, so that when it happens in a game, okay, you can feel comfortable going, we've repped this a million times. If the kids screw it up, it is what it is, all right? We've worked it. If they make a mental mistake on the field, then maybe it's an individual player that we got to remove, or we've got to take that kid and kind of, re-emphasize what we're trying to do. But we can't go out there when they screw it up and say, man, I can't believe they screwed it up. Well, we never do it. Well, no, we're going to have individual periods where we do it so that during the game, the tempo is non-negotiable. You guys have been drilled this way. You've practiced this way. You know exactly what we're trying to do. And when we change the tempo, or when we play faster or fastest or slower, all right, you as players can't come to the sideline and go, coach, that's the first time we've ever done that. I didn't know what to do. Eliminate that excuse completely. All right, eliminate that from coaches and players and make sure they understand. So that's what we're going to do in the spring. It's a simple adjustment, simple wrinkle that we're going to make, because I am going to focus on specifically getting better at the tempo. I want my coaches to get better. I want my players to get better. Okay? So take that for what it is. Maybe it will help you if you're a tempo team. Maybe it doesn't help you. But here's the one thing that I think can help. Practice the way you think your kids and your coaches practice best. Practice a way that is best for your football program at your school. And if there's something in the offseason that you want to accomplish, or you get together as a staff to say, we've got to do X, Y, or Z, then in your practice plan, develop ways to do X, Y, or Z if you want to get better at it. Anything you want to get better at, you better work on, and you better work on it a bunch. All right? Remember, guys, you don't play well till you play fast. See you next time.